Okay, tips based on age. So these are the quick and dirty tips. We're actually flying through this thing a lot faster than I thought we would, but maybe I just need to slow down my rate of speech. Tips based on age. Below 2 years of age, our goal is to meet milestones. We want them babbling. We want them saying words by one, speaking in sentences. You can give me a lot better idea of these, but our goal is to get this kid interested in sound. And not just animal sounds, not just tractor sounds, but actually getting in their face, having them touch your lips. Sometimes their hands taste so good, I don't even know what they've gotten into. I'm just kidding. But I mean, I really love to like hang on to my friends' kids and get them to b. Now, it's not the sounds that we remember them being in school. It's not ba, and it's not wa, it's woo. Sounds crazy. Whoa. And believe it or not, these kids will have great attention. We did work with my niece, actually, who was 4 years old. My sister-in-law called me. She said, I've taken her to 5 hearing tests. And they keep telling me that nothing's wrong. I thought, uh-oh. One right under my nose, and I didn't even see it. So just kind of focusing back on some of these sounds, not just doing it visually, though. I have this really expensive piece of equipment, embroidery hoop, rubber bands extra, I guess, and a little bit of material to create a visual filter without being an auditory filter. So doing boop, boop, and getting the child to connect that with the speech sound that we're using. Now, when the child is really young, we may want to make this a game. Like, I'm going to tell you a story about a princess named B, and maybe I'll get a Barbie doll out that has the letter B on it, and I'll say, every time I say B, I want you to tap that princess. Are you ready? Oh, Princess B loved the color purple. And one day she climbed a tree, and then she couldn't get down, and so Princess Boop had to have her friends make a big bowl full of Jell-O so she could jump into it. I don't know. I mean, sometimes they get a little ridiculous, and makes it a lot easier to keep their attention. But to allow them to focus on just the auditory portion so that they can focus on it when the teacher is facing this way. All right? 2 to 5 years, kind of the same thing that we were talking about. Noting when certain sounds are confused, like an F for a V or F for TH. Yeah, I'm missing 3 teeth. And then just really drawing their attention to each one of those errors. It's just really surprising to me sometimes when I see kiddos who are 10, 12 years old that are still kind of making some of those basic errors still. And I would say that that's a pretty big tip-off that they're not hearing the difference when it's not an actual articulation issue. If they're not having a speech issue with it, and they're simply not hearing the difference between the sound, they'll use M and N interchangeably all day long. Another difficult one is the A and the E sound, the short A and the short E. All the short vowel sounds are hard for them to hear, but they'll just kind of use them randomly. So focus on a single sound 1 week. The next week, focus on the next one. And just kind of systematically pare it down until things are becoming a little easier for the kid. Key for 5 to 7-year-olds, we want them reading. So once again, saying the sounds for what they are, not what they remember them being. I saw this terrible thing, I think it's Leapfrog, don't hold me to that, but Leapfrog that has this new reader where it says ka, a, ta, like as you're scrolling along, ka, a, ta, ka-da. What in the world word is that? Okay, so we're going to try to teach them how to decode, but then also give them a really poor input before they're I mean, I hope that the actual system is better than their marketing tool, but ka-ata. Yow. So when the child does fail to comply with instructions, do assume that it's a failure to understand the instructions as opposed to defiance or lack of compliance. When kids start to feel like they're bad kids because they're not being able to comply with these instructions, they start typecasting themselves. And these kids are really precious to me. So be gentle with them. Ages 7 to 14 years, we want them to be confident in their communication. Teaching them how to repair when there's a breakdown, saying huh and what gets kind of irritating for other people, but to try to train the kid and to kind of talk to them before they're going to go in a situation that's frustrating and say, okay, I want you to, when you're not understanding, I want you to find a different way to say that. Maybe even doing something simple like role-playing can help in this situation. Class participation. Oh my goodness, I wouldn't go back to school, like elementary school. No way. I mean, it would look awkward anyway, because I'm a little old for that. But it is absolutely so hard to try to be a kid and being around all of these people who want you to be perfect, or kids who are going to give you a hard time if you don't say everything right. And I think it causes a lot of anxiety that's secondary to the auditory processing difficulty, which can cause an even greater issue if you've got this this psychological overlay on top of this disorder. So what I would suggest doing is telling the kid the day before, kind of prepping them, say, okay, this is what I'm going to I'm going to ask a question tomorrow, and I'm going to point you out and ask you. I mean, that may still cause some anxiety for them, but they'll be a little bit more prepared. And once the class feels like that child is up and on top of things with them, they'll start owning the child a little bit more. All right, 14 to 18-year-olds, I'd say the key is learning to deal with superiors, wouldn't you guys? Or figuring out how you work with bosses, since you're going to have them until you start your own business like I do, so I don't have to do this. No, just kidding. Anyway, you want to be around, you want to make the child have good self-efficacy. We want this kid to know what's hard for them and how to combat it. That is a pretty sophisticated concept, especially for these kiddos. They're in a totally different world than even I grew up in, we grew up in. I mean, well, except for you, you're in the same world, Blake, but that's okay. He's in the exact same world they were in. But anyway, I would say that these kids have a totally different amount of expectations of them. I mean, compared to what I had. I was reading in a second grade reader not too long ago, and it was talking about the amygdala in the brain. We touched on that in grad school, but not in second grade, along with igneous and metamorphic. But I think it's really important not to call them out in front of peers. This is extremely important for coaches to understand, because a lot of times when kids are playing sports, they're in really acoustically poor situations. They're out on a soccer field, the sound's swallowed up. They're in a gymnasium, the sound's bouncing around like crazy. And I think that it's really difficult for coaches to look at it from this perspective. I was a rower, and when I was on the water, it was just looking around at everything and not paying attention to my coach until I realized that was him on the megaphone, like screaming at me. And also showing them the finished product. I think this is really important because a lot of kids just really don't know how to get from point A to point B, but as soon as you give them a path, I mean, it's not actually holding their hand too much, it's really giving them an idea of how to get to that spot.